Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 24. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. So as ever, let's crack on. First one, QR codes. I always loved QR codes and I love generative AI, so this is perfect. This uses QR codes, as you can see, but using Stable Diffusion and a thing called ControlNet, which allows you to keep control over your generative image, for instance. What you can do is you can go and generate these amazing QR codes that actually look like a picture but still scan like a QR code. So if you get your phone out, scan this thing, it will actually take you to StableDiffusionArt.com, where you can find out how to make them for yourselves. There's a little bit of tech involved, of course, but yeah, that is cool. We really like those. As I say in the description, it's probably going to be about a week until the first one of these appears in a billboard or in a TV ad or something like that. But love those. Those are cool. Really love this campaign as well. So props to Ogilvy in South Africa and also VW, of course, who commissioned this. So this is in a car dealership and it is a literal blind spot. So it uses a very, very black paint that absorbs 99% of all light. It's not Vantablack, because I found out Vantablack is actually, you can't use that for copyright reasons. It's been licensed essentially, but this uses black 3.0. So what you do is you stand in front of this black spot. So that's the black spot you will get in your mirrors, and therefore as you move to the side you can all of a sudden see the cyclist or the motorcyclist or whatever it is. So love this, love the campaign, really simple. This was promoting Motorcycle Awareness Month in South Africa, so very well done, love that. If you've been living under a rock or in a cave, then you might not have known this, but for everybody else, then this is the Vision Pro headset from Apple. Couple of things I thought were really interesting in this one. They didn't say the word metaverse, or the M word as we should call it. Really interesting, they started talking about spatial computing, which is obviously where they think the center of this is going to be. So doing the normal things you normally do, but in a better way. So looking at movies, or maybe you're on the plane, how do you watch a movie better on a plane? Well, you can watch it with the walls taken away from the plane, for instance. Kind of interesting. Other interesting things is there were the LED screen. So when we go back to one of the visuals of it, then there's an LED screen where people can actually see a projection essentially of your eyes and all that sort of good stuff. It is $3,500. It's called Pro for a reason probably, but let's let the people who can afford it do some dev stuff with it, see where they're going. I assume there is a non-pro version coming relatively soon, but this is even going to be next year even, so there you go. New spatial computing with Apple Vision Pro. This is a bizarrely interesting one. So if you wanted to deliver drugs within the body in the future, how might you do it? Well, you'd probably drink a solution with these tiny little micro robots in them, and within the micro robots' capacity is to move the drugs wherever they are needed in the body. That's what they do. But this is really interesting. So what you're seeing in each one of those circles, there's a sort of a little dish you can see around it. That's 1.5 centimeters across. Each one of these robots is no more than a hair's width across, so it's tiny little robots. They have no intelligence, they have no power. All they are is a plastic disc with a tiny little sort of magnetic layer on them. And those magnetic layers can be manipulated by one single field. So a magnet can kind of swish around generally and move each individual one of these because of the interplay between each one of the dots. So you're seeing them move, you're seeing them coalesce into different sizes, all because of this very interesting interplay between each one of the fields that each one of them creates. So I just think this is amazing, great research paper, but this might be how you get drugs into certain parts of the body in the future, but also you can coalesce around foreign objects and potentially remove them from the body as well. So this might be how you cure stuff in the future with nanobots. LiFi, didn't know about this, but it makes complete sense. But pure LiFi, which is light Wi-Fi by the way, so if you have a flashing light you can flash it in a certain frequency and therefore communicate data, pretty much how light communication works within sort of lasers. However, this is the first chip that has been licensed for inclusion in mobile phones, so you might be seeing this in the phone soon. Now what would this do? Well, if you are underneath a street light or a billboard or in an office with lights, those lights can flicker and your phone can communicate both ways with those lights and therefore have a network. It might be a way of creating ultra-fast networks within businesses or internal spaces, but also sometimes outside as well. So like those, watch out for those coming to phones near you soon. Also, other than the Apple headset release, there was also the developers conference, which was WWDC 23. There was lots and lots of stuff. I've put the link below if you want to go and have a look. It's an endless scrolling list of all the things you've sort of seen in the last couple of years. They've sort of smushed them all into one thing. Some of the highlights, was quite a lot in there. SharePlay, which was about 15 years old, where you can now touch your phones together, which was that's a really old thing, but cool. DocKit was really weird. So it's a motorized phone stand where your phone camera app actually communicates to the motors and makes the motors actually control themselves. AirPlay with interstitials. So if you are communicating or streaming a movie through AirPlay, you can add almost adverts, interstitials, so you can control those. Pet skeletal tracking, it can now track cats. There is a specific API for that. So obviously if you use that with DocKit, you can now track your cat automatically. Accessible spatial experiences, so this is with Vision OS, so the whole VR and AR stuff, there's a whole Vision Express spatial experiences. So that's with accessibility is built right into the heart of it, which is really good to see. And personal voices I didn't expect. So on the new OS, though, that allows you to actually recreate your voice. So you can store your voice and then you can use it to maybe speak for you. You have to authorize it, but there you go. So there's lots of other things. There's just a hint of it down the right hand side, what the list looks like, but lots of interesting stuff. And finally, really interesting story this week about a salvage boat that was caught trying to potentially get some pre-1945 iron or steel from a submerged shipwreck, which caused a bit of an incident. And I thought, well, what's all that about? Well, it turns out that if you are making medical equipment or anything that's deeply technical that you need relatively pure steel to make it, maybe pressure vessels or some sort of detection detector, then anything before 1945, 16th of July to be precise, is the much better steel to have, because that's when the first atomic bomb test went off, and therefore scattering radiation throughout the world, and therefore contaminating every steel or iron piece of kit since then. So if there was anything that is probably on the bottom of the sea, lead and steel or iron are basically what people are trying to find. So there's an entire illicit and often illegal trade in pre-1945, pre-July 16th, 1945 iron and steel for tech kit. Who knew? Well, hopefully you do now. Didn't know that, but it's a thing. There you go. Hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully it was useful. If it was, share it with somebody, and I will see you next week.